Hey guys, how's it going? Brandon here. And last night, Super Auto Pets had a pretty moderately big update rollout that changed a whole bunch of things in the game. We got a couple new features going around, some bug fixes, and most importantly, they balanced out some of the pets. Got a couple buffs in there and some pretty major debuffs on some pretty major nerfs. So I just wanted to make a quick video going over that and talking about that. So first up, let's talk about some of the boring things. So they made a handful of changes to the versus mode, including adding filters in, letting you choose a mode where it changes the way that you lose lives, and also making sure that you don't come up against the same opponent 2 times in a row. They changed a few things with sound effects in general, like they changed the sound effect for losing hearts, as well as for clicking on your pets. They added in the logo at the beginning of the game, so when you turn it on, the game's logo will flash up before it actually moves into the game. That's new. They also changed the sound effect and music sliders. It used to be both of these were locked at 0%, 25, 50, 75, 100. You had to click on it to change that. Now they're just sliders, so you can change them anywhere between 0 and 100%. So both of those are cool, just things to make it a little bit more professional. And then into bug fixes, again, just a couple boring things. Some of the stats weren't getting gathered correctly, so they fixed that. There was a link that didn't work correctly. The email confirmation sometimes didn't work correctly. Big thing here is that there was a bug before where the fly ability only works 3 times per battle, and sometimes it would bug so that you wouldn't get its trigger off 3 times, and that's happened to me plenty of times where I've only gotten 1 or 2 flies. Well, they fixed that, so now hopefully it should be working correctly. So that's a pretty big one. So moving on to what we really care about, a handful of pets got balanced, got rebalanced, got tweaked, got nerfed or buffed, and it's wild. Things are going to be really weird after this buff. I've already played a little bit, and man, it is kind of a different game at this point. At least to me, some of the pets that I cared about were changed, and it's just so weird. So the first one up is Whale. The Whale used to be a 2/6 unit. This got buffed up to a 3/8 unit. Its ability works the same as it always did. It's just a little bit stronger, a little bit tougher. So that's cool. Whale was never an amazing unit, so a small buff to stats is pretty cool there. This next one is another stat change. The Swan got nerfed from a 3/3 to a 1/3. It still gives 1 gold at the beginning of every buy round, but now it's a 1/3. And man, does this one hurt. The Swan has a great ability, but having a nice 3/3 body is really good. It really helps replace the tier 1 units that you don't want anymore. Now it's one of the weaker units in the game, stat-wise. It still has a great ability, but man, it is hard to keep this thing on the team if it's not scaling well. I tried playing with Swan earlier. I still will in the future. The 1 gold that you get off of it is still great, but man, that body is tough to work with. Next up is Dragon. It's a tier 6 unit. The way that it used to work is that whenever you had a dragon and you bought a tier 1 pet, Dragon would give +1/+1 to your entire team, all 5 units. Now, whenever you buy a tier 1 pet, Dragon will buff everything except for itself. So it used to give +5/+5 across your whole team. Now it's just +4/+4. This is one that, to be completely honest, I'm not super with. I don't hate it as much as Swan. I don't usually play Dragon, to be honest, but it doesn't feel like a great nerf. And the reason for that is that the Dragon strategy already took so much resource to get down correctly. You would have 4 good units, including the Dragon, and you'd have 1 open slot, something where you would buy tier 1 units, you'd fill it up with just a random unit in the shop just to kind of get into battle. But then in a battle, your Dragon should have high stats at this point because you've been using its ability, but it doesn't do anything itself in battle. So you've got 3 really good units, your Dragon is strong, and then you've got 1 just kind of free slot, kind of a dump slot that's not really doing anything. Well, this nerf really brings that down to now you've got 3 good units. You've got the Dragon, which has a bad ability in battle. It's basically nothing, and it's going to be small, and you've got your dump slot. So the Dragon team, as good as it used to be, I think the nerf here was a little too much. I've heard a lot of people complaining about Dragon. I never really minded it that much because you've got to put so much resource into it that I thought it was fine. If you could make it work, sure, you deserve a win. Now, the nerf on it, I feel like it's a little too much, and I think Dragon went from fringe playable to not very good, which is kind of weird that they made that change. I understand that some people wanted it nerfed. I just feel like this is a little too much. That's going to bring us to TRex, basically the same thing. TRex is a tier 6 unit that says if you end your buy phase with 3 gold remaining, TRex is going to give everyone on your team +2/+1. So you finish with 3 gold and you get a free Snail buff on everyone on your team. The TRex is incredibly powerful. It was super broken. They have nerfed this down to now the TRex does not buff itself. Kind of like Dragon, the TRex is only going to buff the other units on your team. The problem here is that even though TRex got nerfed, The new nerf T-Rex is still stronger than the old dragon. And this is kind of why I feel like it's weird to nerf dragon in this way. Because again, remember, before with dragon, you had 3 good units, 1 strong dragon that did nothing in battle, and 1 dump slot. Now you've got 2 dump slots. Well, the T-Rex at its state now is 4 strong units with good abilities, and 1 T-Rex that is stat-wise stronger than a dragon. Its ability still doesn't do anything, but it is stronger than the dragon. So, I mean, it's a dump slot, but not as much. So I do agree that T-Rex needed to get nerfed. It's just weird in contrast with dragon because new T-Rex is still stronger than old dragon, and dragon is even worse now. All right, let's move down a tier to tier 5. We're looking at Monkey. Monkey got nerfed. Monkey used to give +3/+3 to your rightmost unit. Now it only gives +2/+3. So +2/+3 as soon as I believe turn 7 is still incredibly powerful, but the nerf is really going to do a number on people. It doesn't look like that much, it's just 1 power less, but the way this scales over and over, it's going to change things completely, especially as you level that monkey up. A level 2 monkey now only gives +4/+6 instead of +6/+6, and it keeps going from there. So monkey is a crazy nerf. I'm not going to say that it's not justified though. Monkey is very strong. An early monkey will help you win a game just by itself. So getting a nerf there, I think makes sense. I don't like it because I liked monkey and now it's worse. Oh well. Moving on to Peacock. This is the craziest change of this entire update. So Peacock used to be a 1/5 unit that said every time it took damage, it got 2 attack power. And at level 2, it got 4 attack power, and at level 3, it got an extra 6 attack power. Well, Peacock was changed. Now its base stats are 2/5, so a little bit of a buff there. But the ability is now that it gains 50% attack power, and it has charges. So first, the 50% attack power, whenever it takes damage, it's going to gain half of its own attack back on top of itself. So depending on how high the Peacock's attack power is, this could be more than the Peacock used to give. It could be less. It really just depends. A base level 2/5 Peacock is worse than it used to be, is worse than the old version. But once you start getting the Peacock up to like 4 power, 6 power, 8 power, now all of a sudden it is much better because it's getting much more attack power much faster than it used to. So at the kind of higher levels and closer to the end game, I think the 50% attack power portion here is actually pretty good. The weird part is the charges. At level 1, the Peacock gets 1 charge of this, meaning it can take damage once and get 50% attack power, and that's it. That's the rest of Peacock. At level 2, it gets 2 charges, so it can do this twice. A level 3 Peacock can do this 3 times. So whether this is a buff or a nerf is kind of hard to say. I think it's mostly a lateral move and just like inclines up just like a little bit. I think technically it is a little bit of a buff, but there are enough situations where this is going to feel like a nerf that it's kind of hard to say. This is one of those that we're just going to have to play with over and over again and see how it feels. I was playing a bit with Peacock earlier today, and kind of like I was saying before, in the early game, before you got any chance to buff it or anything, it felt really bad. But as soon as you started getting a little bit of buffs on it, it did feel good. What really sucks is when you get into those situations where it's fighting like summons or something like that, and it's fighting over and over and over again, and it's just not getting any bigger. That's always kind of a feels bad. Next up is Snail, and Snail got a huge nerf actually, which is really sad. Snail is a unit that works really weird. The effect only goes off if you lost your last battle. It gave everything else on your team +2/+1. Well, now the Snail only gives +1/+1. Apparently the extra power was too much. The Snail only gives +1/+1 after you've lost a game. Now this is one that I legitimately do not think is a good change. I am actively against this one. The reason being that the Snail is always meant to be a catch-up mechanic. It's always something to help players who are losing catch back up and get to a point where, well, maybe they can start winning now. +1/+1 from the Snail, it's not a small buff by any means because it's going across the entire team. It's still +4/+4 in total. But I don't believe that it's as much of a catch-up mechanic as it used to be. +1/+1 to each individual unit just isn't as impactful as +2/+1. So at the end of the day, I don't think Snails are going to be nearly as worth it as they used to be. I don't think that this is going to be a great unit to kind of save in the shop so that you can play it and kind of stack them up. It just doesn't work as well as it used to, and I think that it's bad in this case. Like, I think the Snail got significantly worse, and not just in a way that the numbers went lower so it feels bad. I think it is legitimately not as playable anymore. Moving over to Rat. Rat got reworked significantly again. If you're unfamiliar, rat has been reworked several times. They've really had a hard time figuring out how they wanted the rat to work, but it looks like they've changed it again, and I actually really like the way that the rat works now. Right now, the rat is a 4/5 unit that says when it dies, it summons a 1/1 rat to your opponent's team in the front. Used to be in the back, now it's the front. So why is this important? Well, because now you can combo this in a way that the rat that gets summoned actually matters. You used to summon a 1/1 rat to the back of your opponent's team, and it didn't matter because it didn't do anything. Now that it's in the front of the team, it pairs perfectly well with units that want to take damage. So a really big strategy now is going to be having a rat and then something like a pufferfish behind it. Rat dies, it summons a 1/1 dirty rat to your opponent's team. That 1/1 dirty rat is going to crash into your pufferfish and die, and now your pufferfish gets the ability to go off. This is exactly what these wants to be hurt units want to take advantage of. They want to go up against as many 1/1 opposing units as possible to get their abilities off as many times as possible. So rat went from a place where it didn't really do anything to now a place where it combos really well with this one specific type of unit. Plus, now the ability scales. The rat's ability used to give a 1/1 dirty rat to your opponent, and that was it. Didn't matter what level it was. Well, now the rat's going to summon a number of rats to your opponent's team equal to what level it is. So 1/1 rat's going to summon 1 dirty rat to your opponent's team. Level 2 rat's going to summon 2. Level 3 rat's going to summon 3. And again, this just works so well with the units that want to take damage because they're just going to crash up against a bunch of 1/1s. They're going to get their abilities going off multiple times. So the rat is a weird rework, but I think it's most definitely a buff in pretty much every way. And finally, we've got Duck. Duck was actually buffed into a 1/3. Used to be a 1/2, now it's a 1/3. This is a very small change, but I think it's actually going to be super impactful. I think it's going to be super significant because being a 1/3 means that it now trades favorably with things like ants and crickets on turn 1. A 1/2 duck used to die to literally everything. Now, as a 1/3, it can survive everything. You can put a duck first up in your team, and it's going to trade with beavers. Like, it's going to trade with tutus just fine in a way that it used to never be able to do. So is the duck a good unit now? No, I definitely don't think so, but it's at least viable now. It used to be by far the worst unit in the game. Now it is something that you're not embarrassed to take. So that's it for the changes. This was a pretty crazy update. Some of these balances to these animals were pretty insane, and I think they're going to shake up the meta of what goes on pretty handily from here on out, with Duck being more viable in the early game, with Rat enabling a strategy in the mid game, Peacock just being real weird. We got to see where that goes. And of course, in the late game, Monkeys, Dragons, T-Rexes not being as good. I think we're really going to see some changes in the meta, and I'm kind of excited to see where that goes. I'm a little scared because I'm not going into it with a very strong Swan anymore, but who's to say where it goes from here? Maybe it turns out better. No idea, but I'm excited to see what happens. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. This little like a news type video is a little different from my channel, so I hope that it ended up being enjoyable. And if it was, please remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I will talk to you all next time.